What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest legends walks into what should be a friendly morning chat and gets ambushed on live television? It only took one comment from Savannah Guthrie to turn a routine interview into the most explosive exit in Today Show history. The studio lights were bright that morning. Harrison Ford sat in the guest chair, relaxed, ready to talk about his latest project. Across from him, Savannah Guthrie shuffled her notes with that familiar morning show smile. Hoda Kotb sat to her left, and Al Roker was positioned nearby, all of them ready for what they thought would be another standard celebrity interview. Savannah started things off cheerfully. "Harrison, it's so great to have you here. We're thrilled you could join us this morning." Harrison nodded, giving that classic half smile he's known for. "Thanks for having me." "So let's talk about your new film," Savannah continued. "You've been doing this for decades now. Do you ever feel like maybe it's time to step back and let younger actors take the spotlight?" The question hung in the air for a moment. Harrison's expression shifted slightly. "I'm sorry, what?" Savannah pressed on, seemingly oblivious to the tension she'd just created. "Well, you're at a certain point in your career. Don't you think audiences want to see fresh faces?" Hoda jumped in, trying to smooth things over. "I think what Savannah means is..." But Savannah cut her off. "No, I think it's a fair question. Harrison, you've had an incredible run, but aren't you just holding on to roles that could go to someone more relevant?" Harrison sat up straighter in his chair. "More relevant? I'm sitting right here, Savannah. I'm plenty relevant." "Are you, though?" Savannah leaned forward, her tone taking on an edge that seemed almost confrontational. "When was the last time you had a film that really connected with today's audience? Not just nostalgic fans, but actual modern viewers?" Al Roker shifted, uncomfortably in his spot. "Hey, come on now. Harrison's work speaks for itself." Savannah waved him off without looking away from Harrison. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Hollywood has moved on. Maybe it's time you did too." Harrison's jaw tightened. "You invited me here to promote a film, and instead you're telling me I'm washed up? Is that what this is?" "I'm not saying washed up," Savannah replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I'm saying that maybe, just maybe, you've had your moment and now it's someone else's turn. It's not personal, it's just the reality of the business." "Not personal?" Harrison's voice rose slightly. "You're sitting here on national television telling me I'm irrelevant to my face and it's not personal?" Hoda tried again to intervene. "Harrison, I don't think that's what she meant at all. Your career has been incredible, and this new film looks amazing." But Savannah wasn't backing down. "Hoda, let's be honest here. We're journalists. We ask tough questions. Harrison, your last few projects have been, well, let's just say they haven't exactly set the box office on fire. Don't you think that says something?" Harrison stared at her for a long moment. "What it says is that I choose projects I believe in, not just whatever will make the most money. But I wouldn't expect you to understand that." "Oh, here we go," Savannah said with a dismissive laugh. "The artistic integrity defense. How convenient when the numbers don't add up." Al Roker spoke up more forcefully this time. "Savannah, maybe we should move on to something else." Savannah ignored him completely. "Harrison, let me ask you this. Do you think you're still getting roles because of your talent? Or because of who you used to be? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like Hollywood is just being polite." The studio went quiet. Even the crew seemed to freeze. Harrison's expression was unreadable for a moment, and then he spoke, his voice calm but firm. "You know what, Savannah? I've been doing interviews for over 40 years. I've sat with some of the best and some of the worst. But this is something else entirely." "What's that supposed to mean?" Savannah asked, her arms crossing defensively. "It means you're not a journalist asking tough questions. You're someone who invited a guest onto your show just to tear them down on live television. That's not journalism. That's just mean." Hoda nodded slightly, clearly agreeing but not wanting to openly contradict her co-host. "Harrison makes a good point, Savannah." "This feels a bit aggressive." Savannah turned to Hoda sharply. "I'm doing my job. If he can't handle real questions, maybe he shouldn't be here." "Real questions?" Harrison leaned forward now. "You haven't asked me a single real question. You've just been insulting me since I sat down. There's a difference." "Oh, please." Savannah scoffed. "You're being oversensitive. This is what interviews are now. If you can't handle it, that's on you." Al Roker looked directly at Savannah. "No, this isn't what interviews are. This is you being disrespectful to a guest for no good reason. Savannah whipped her head toward Al. Stay out of this, Al. I'm not staying out of anything, Al shot back. This is uncomfortable to watch. Harrison came here in good faith, and you're treating him like he did something wrong just by existing. Savannah turned back to Harrison, her expression hardening. Look, Harrison, I'm sorry if the truth hurts, but someone needs to say it. You're coasting on past success. Your recent work is forgettable. And frankly, I'm surprised you're still getting offers at all. The words landed like bombs. Hoda gasped audibly. Al shook his head in disbelief. Harrison sat perfectly still for several seconds, and then he slowly stood up from his chair. What are you doing? Savannah asked, suddenly seeming to realize she might have pushed too far. I'm leaving, Harrison said simply, reaching up to remove his microphone. You can't just leave in the middle of an interview, Savannah protested, her voice rising. Watch me. Harrison's voice was steady, controlled. I came here to talk about a film I'm proud of. Instead, you decided to use your platform to try to humiliate me. I don't need this. I don't need you. And I certainly don't need to sit here and be insulted by someone who clearly has her own issues to work through. Savannah stood up now too, her face flushing. My own issues? You're the one who can't handle criticism. There's a difference between criticism and cruelty, Savannah. You crossed that line about 10 minutes ago. Harrison handed his microphone to a nearby producer. Hoda stood as well, reaching out toward Harrison. Harrison, please. I'm so sorry about this. This isn't how we normally do things. Harrison gave her a kind look. I know, Hoda. You've been nothing but professional. Same with you, Al. But I'm not staying somewhere I'm not respected. Al stood and walked over to Harrison. I don't blame you one bit, man. This was wrong. Savannah's voice took on a desperate edge. Harrison, if you walk out, you're just proving my point. You can't handle the modern media landscape. Harrison turned back to look at her one last time. No, Savannah. I can handle tough questions. I can handle real journalism. What I can handle and what I won't handle is being disrespected by someone who seems to think being rude is the same thing as being interesting. You want to know why I'm still working? It's because I treat people with dignity. I show up prepared. I do the work. And I don't tear others down to make myself feel important. Maybe you should try it sometime. The silence that followed was deafening. Savannah opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Harrison nodded to the crew, many of whom looked sympathetic, and started walking toward the exit. Savannah found her voice again, louder now, almost shouting. You're making a huge mistake. Do you know how this is going to look? Harrison stopped at the edge of the set and turned back. It's going to look like a man who knows his worth, refused to be treated like garbage on television. I can live with that. This is ridiculous, Savannah said, looking at the cameras as if appealing to the audience at home. Everyone's so sensitive these days. I was just asking questions. Hoda finally spoke up more forcefully. No, Savannah, you weren't. You were attacking him from the moment he sat down. There was no reason for any of that. Oh, so now you're turning on me too? Savannah's voice was shrill. I'm not turning on anyone, Hoda said calmly. I'm just saying what everyone here is thinking. That was unprofessional. Al nodded in agreement. She's right. I've been on this show a long time, and I've never seen anything like what just happened. That wasn't an interview. That was an ambush. Savannah looked between her co-hosts, seeming to realize she was losing control of the situation. Fine, everyone take his side. But when the ratings come in and people are talking about this, don't forget who made this segment interesting. Interesting? Harrison's voice came from near the exit. He'd paused, hearing her last comment. Is that what you think this was? Interesting? Savannah, you just humiliated yourself on live television. You invited a guest onto your show and spent the entire time trying to make him feel small. And for what? A few extra clicks online? Some controversy? Is that really worth your integrity? Savannah's face was bright red now. Get out. Just get out. I'm already gone. Harrison turned and walked off the set. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the aftermath. Hoda sat back down, looking shaken. Al rubbed his face with his hands. Savannah stood alone, her chest heaving, clearly trying to regain her composure. A producer's voice could be heard off camera. We need to go to commercial. Now. But before they could cut away, Savannah grabbed her notes and threw them down on the desk. This is unbelievable. I do my job. I ask the questions nobody else will ask, and I'm the bad guy? Hoda looked at her with something close to pity. Savannah, there's asking tough questions, and then there's what you just did. Those aren't the same thing. Whatever, Savannah snapped. Everyone's going to be talking about this tomorrow. That's what matters. Al stood up and started walking off the set himself. You know what, Savannah? If that's really what you think matters, then you've completely lost the plot. Harrison Ford just walked off this show because you couldn't treat him with basic respect. That's the story, not whatever spin you're trying to put on it, Savannah called after him. Where are you going? Anywhere but here right now, Al replied without turning around. Now it was just Savannah and Hoda on the set. The crew was scrambling, trying to figure out how to proceed. The producer's voice came through again. We're going to commercial in 5, 4, 3. Hoda looked at the camera with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. We'll be right back after this break. The second the camera light went off, Savannah collapsed into her chair. I can't believe he just walked out. Hoda turned to her slowly. Really? You can't believe it? Savannah, you basically called him irrelevant, washed up, and a charity case all in the span of about 15 minutes. What did you think was going to happen? I thought he'd defend himself, push back, make good television. Savannah's voice was quieter now, less certain. He did defend himself, Hoda said, by refusing to participate in whatever that was. And honestly, I don't blame him. If someone treated me the way you just treated him, I'd walk out too. Savannah looked up at her. You really think I was that bad? Yes, Hoda said without hesitation. I really do. And I think you know it too. The producer approached them. Okay, we've got 3 minutes. What are we doing when we come back? Savannah looked lost. I don't know. What can we do? Our guest just walked out. Our guest didn't just walk out, Hoda corrected. You drove him out. There's a difference. The producer looked between them. We need to address this when we come back. We can't just pretend it didn't happen. Savannah nodded slowly. Fine, we'll address it. And Savannah? The producer added. Maybe let Hoda take the lead on this one. The insult was clear. Savannah's eyes flashed with anger, but she didn't argue. She couldn't. Everyone on that set knew what had just happened. Everyone knew she'd gone too far. Back in the hallway, Harrison was still removing his microphone pack when a production assistant approached him. Mr. Ford, I'm so sorry about what happened in there. That was completely out of line. Harrison gave her a tired smile. Not your fault, but thank you. For what it's worth, the assistant continued, everyone back here thinks you handled that perfectly. She had no right to talk to you that way. I appreciate that, Harrison said, but I've been around long enough to know that sometimes you just have to walk away. No amount of money or publicity is worth being disrespected like that. Another crew member, an older camera operator, came over. Mr. Ford, I've been working in television for 30 years. What she did in there, that's not journalism. That's not even good television. That's just someone trying to make a name for themselves by tearing down someone who's actually accomplished something. You did the right thing. Harrison shook the man's hand. Thank you. That means a lot. A security guard appeared to escort Harrison out of the building. As they walked through the corridors, more staff members stopped to express their support. It was clear that inside the building, the sentiment was overwhelmingly on Harrison's side. Meanwhile, back on the set, the commercial break was ending. Hoda and Savannah sat at the desk, the tension between them palpable. Al had returned, but he sat in his usual spot looking uncomfortable and avoiding eye contact with Savannah. The camera light turned red, indicating they were live again. Hoda spoke first, her voice professional and measured. Welcome back. As you can see, we're down one guest. For those just joining us, Harrison Ford walked off our set during what became a very heated exchange. I want to address this directly because it's important. Savannah started to speak, but Hoda continued, essentially cutting her off. As a show, we pride ourselves on asking important questions and having meaningful conversations with our guests. What happened just now did not reflect those values. Mr. Ford came here in good faith to discuss his work, and the interview took a turn that none of us are proud of. Savannah finally managed to interject. I was simply trying to ask the kinds of questions that viewers want answered. Hoda turned to her. Savannah, with all due respect, that's not what happened. And I think if we're going to address this honestly, we need to be honest about what viewers actually just witnessed. Al spoke up. Hoda's right. What happened wasn't about tough questions. It was about a guest being treated poorly, and I'm glad Hoda is saying it out loud. Savannah's face was a mask of barely controlled fury, but she was trapped. She couldn't argue without making things worse. Obviously, people will have different perspectives on what happened. No, Hoda said firmly. This isn't about different perspectives. This is about what actually happened. And what happened was wrong. Mr. Ford, if you're watching, I want to personally apologize. That's not who we are, and it's not how we treat our guests. Al nodded. Same here, Harrison. You deserve better. The camera held on Savannah, waiting for her to add her own apology. The seconds ticked by. Finally, she spoke, her voice tight. I apologize if Mr. Ford felt disrespected. That certainly wasn't my intention. Hoda closed her eyes briefly, clearly frustrated with the non-apology. Let's move on to our next segment. But the damage was done. The interview that was supposed to be a standard promotional appearance had turned into one of the most dramatic moments in morning television history, and everyone watching knew exactly who was at fault. As the show continued, trying desperately to regain some sense of normalcy, Harrison Ford was already in his car, heading away from the studio. His phone was buzzing with messages of support from friends, colleagues, and even other journalists who had seen what happened. He didn't respond to any of them yet. He just looked out the window, processing what had occurred. After 4 decades in Hollywood, after countless interviews and press appearances, he'd finally reached his limit. And he'd walked away with his dignity intact. That's what mattered. Not the publicity, not the controversy, not whatever headlines would come from this. He'd stood up for himself when it mattered most. He'd refused to be diminished by someone who seemed to think cruelty was a substitute for credibility. Back at the studio, as the show limped toward its conclusion, the staff was already buzzing about what had happened. Social media was exploding with reactions. Video clips were being shared thousands of times per minute. Everyone had an opinion, but in the studio itself, there was only an uncomfortable silence whenever the cameras weren't rolling. Hoda and Al weren't speaking to Savannah. The crew was avoiding her. Even the producers seemed to be keeping their distance. Savannah sat at the desk during another commercial break, staring at nothing. She'd wanted to make an impact. She'd wanted to create a memorable moment. She'd succeeded, but not in the way she'd intended. Hoda looked over at her. You know this isn't going to go away quietly, right? Savannah didn't respond. People are going to remember this. Hoda continued, not as some bold journalism moment. They're going to remember it as the time you were cruel to Harrison Ford for no reason, and he walked out. Is that really the legacy you want? Finally, Savannah looked at her. I was just trying to make good television. No, Hoda said sadly. You were trying to make yourself look important by making someone else look small, and it backfired completely. The final segment of the show began. They smiled for the cameras, delivered their lines, promoted the next day's guests. But everyone watching could feel the tension. Everyone could sense that something fundamental had broken on that set. When the show finally ended and the cameras turned off for the last time, Savannah immediately stood up and walked off the set without a word to anyone. Hoda and Al watched her go. That was brutal, Al said quietly. It was necessary, Hoda replied. Someone had to say it. A senior producer approached them. Meeting in 20 minutes. Conference room. Everyone. They both nodded, knowing that this was far from over. What had happened on that set was going to have consequences. Not for Harrison Ford, who'd walked away with his reputation enhanced, if anything, but for Savannah, who'd revealed something about herself that couldn't be taken back. In the conference room 20 minutes later, the mood was somber. The show's producers, Hoda, Al, and eventually Savannah, all gathered around the table. The segment had been playing on loop in the media. The reactions were overwhelmingly negative, almost entirely directed at Savannah. The executive producer spoke first. I think we all know why we're here. What happened this morning cannot happen again. Savannah, I need you to help me understand what you were thinking. Savannah looked defensive. I was trying to ask challenging questions. I was trying to make the interview interesting. By attacking our guest? The producer asked. By essentially calling him washed up and irrelevant? Savannah, that's not challenging. That's just hostile. Everyone asks tough questions now, Savannah argued. This is what gets attention. You're right that it gets attention, the producer agreed. But not the kind we want, not the kind that reflects well on this show or this network. Harrison Ford is beloved, he's respected, and you made him look sympathetic while making yourself look like a bully. How is that good for anyone? Savannah had no answer. Hoda spoke up. I think we need to be clear about something. This wasn't about tough questions. I've seen tough questions. I've asked tough questions. What happened today was personal. It was mean-spirited, and it was completely unnecessary. Al nodded. Every single person in that studio knew it was wrong. The crew knew it. The producers knew it. Hoda and I knew it. And Harrison Ford definitely knew it. The only person who seemed to think it was okay was Savannah. Savannah's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. Fine. Everyone thinks I'm the villain. I get it. It's not about being a villain, the producer said. It's about recognizing that what you did was out of bounds. Way out of bounds. And we need to figure out how to move forward from this. The meeting continued for another hour. Discussions about public statements, potential apologies, and how to handle the inevitable media scrutiny. But the damage was done. The story was already written. The dramatic clash on the Today Show would be remembered as the day Harrison Ford walked out, the day he stood up for himself, and the day Savannah Guthrie went too far.